We have the most robust and complex regulatory system the planet has ever known, and it has done absolutely nothing to limit crime. And that is because, by default, criminals don't give a flying flat rat about your regulations. Right. The company's CTO said to me, well, that's not going to work. And I said, well, why not? Why is it not going to work? And he says, because of KYC AML. That has propelled the last 5 years of my practice in totality. The pursuit of a solution to this problem, and in the process of pursuing a real world solution to this problem, I have discovered that our regulators are lying to us. What they are doing is, as the solution is being innovated by these individuals that are sort of pioneering this technology in this space generally, the global regulators are moving even faster to implement greater constraints upon the individual's access to the on-ramps and the exit ramps of blockchain and digital currencies, to block people from engaging in transactions without first making total disclosure. I want to assure people that the US federal government has regulated the life out of crypto.
If you want to see more videos and interviews like this from influential people in tech, finance, and sports, subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit the bell to be alerted. And go a step further and join the YouTube and membership area for early releases of videos like this. I'm out of here. It's your boy Crypto Blood, and welcome to another Kicking It session. Today I've got someone I'm very, very excited to speak to. She's knowledgeable about law, blockchain, and I think she wants to be a programmer too. We'll talk to this wonderful lady that I actually met through Ted Seidel. She helped or was quoted in one of Ted's latest Forbes articles. So he said to me, CB, I think you should interview this woman. She is very knowledgeable in the blockchain space. And hey, I always want to bring you guys content that will enhance your knowledge about blockchain and law. And it's very important. We see where we're going in this space. So without further ado, Anessa Santos, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Oh, I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on. This is going to be so much fun.
I feel like it really is. It's going to be an epic Kicking This session, guys, because she knows so much. I just want to kick off with this, though, because your email to me, right, after Ted introduced us, I think I saw a line in your email, and I have to find it really quickly because it really stood out to me. And I said, I'm going to have to steal this one from Anessa. You said here, years ago, I tripped and fell down the blockchain rabbit hole. No one gave me a ladder, so I live here now. I love it. I absolutely love it. Tell us about yourself, Anessa, before we get into the blockchain part of it, your law background, all that good stuff. I heard you were involved in a couple of tech startups that ended up going public.
Yeah.
That's amazing and rare.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Dayton, Ohio, and for most people don't know.
Go blue.
Yeah, right. So like a lot of people don't. Well, that's Michigan. Go Reds. Yeah. Go Buckeyes. But okay. Right, you were about to catch me there.
I almost caught you.
You almost got me. So a lot of people don't know that Dayton, more patents were filed out of the city of Dayton, Ohio than any other city in the world for manufacturing in particular, prior to the advent of Silicon Valley. And so I actually come from an area from where innovation, invention, and entrepreneurship is a huge part of the culture from where I came from and part of my background. And so, being sent to law school by some folks that I worked with who were innovators and entrepreneurs in emerging technology was really, my task was to be the translator between the entrepreneurs and the investors and the lawyers that couldn't ever understand what the heck it was that we were up to. And so we were developing proprietary patent portfolios for managed network services and video network operations. And ironically, actually practicing law was plan B. I never had any intentions of being a lawyer. But then there was a hostile venture capital investment into one of the companies that I worked for in my third year of law school. So
Mm.
when, I was ousted along with senior management for a while, moved to Florida, got licensed in Florida, and thought, well, while we work this out, and if pardon my distraction, I have a new baby kitten that is just running all over the place.
No problem.
When I left, well, I was ousted along with senior management, and I thought, well, this will actually be a really good opportunity for me to get some trial experience. So I joined the Office of the Public Defender in Fort Myers, Florida, where I managed the largest criminal docket in 5 counties. And in that process, I had occasion to meet a gentleman who was a Guatemalan migrant worker, who has his quota was to pick 4,000 pounds of tomatoes a day, for which he would be compensated with $63 in
Oh my
cash.
God.
Yeah, so it was modern slavery. And so what these workers would have to do is they would have to save up their cash until they could justify the trip and the fees for Western Union to send some of it back to their families in Guatemala. And this was a notoriously dangerous journey, because if they got caught on the way to Western Union, they
Your
would be
funds will be.
physically robbed,
Mm-hmm.
violently robbed, because
Mm-hmm.
everybody in that area of Central Florida knew that they would be carrying like sort of the aggregation of their
Mm-hmm.
cash on them. And on one particular occasion, my client was on his way. He was being followed by an unmarked police vehicle that pulled them over and then arrested my client. And in the search pursuant to arrest, found the money and said, "You're a Guatemalan migrant worker. You shouldn't have this much cash. Obviously, it's for drugs." And he took it under criminal forfeiture. And that's how he came to my office. And I said, well, he had
Wow.
no lawful reason for the stop. I got the criminal charges thrown out, but because I was a public defender, I couldn't pursue the return of the money that was stolen by the police officer,
That
even though it
is
was taken
so
wrongfully.
crazy, Anessa. I literally would in one of my live streams last week. I walked through criminal and what's the other forfeiture? Is it
Civil.
civil, criminal, and there's another one, right?
Not that I'm
No,
aware of, but that doesn't, I
they
mean,
called it administrative or
well, administrative agencies also have forfeiture rules, right?
okay,
In
yes,
which
that's
case
it. That's
it
what
would
they were talking about.
kind of fall under the umbrella of
Of
civil.
civil.
Yeah,
Okay,
because
right,
it's
right,
not
right.
criminal.
That's so
So,
crazy. I was telling and educating my audience last week about that because they're now starting to try, and I don't want to get off topic or deviate from your story, but really quickly, these agencies and the government here in the United States is now looking into how they can forfeit your crypto.
oh, that's
They
right. No,
they
they're
got some
already
new
doing it.
laws.
They're
Yeah,
already doing
they're
it.
already doing it right, but they want to
Yeah.
add, they want to broaden it or something. They were saying, but go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, no, I mean that's actually a perfect. I mean, your timing is absolutely perfect for bringing this up, because, I said one of the things that I said to my client was, "Well, why didn't you put all of your money in a bank account?" Because I was ignorant, and
Mm,
I didn't know, right? And he said to me, he says, "Well, I don't have the right papers to open a bank account." And I'm like, "But you have like your Guatemalan passport, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've got my Guatemalan passport." And I said, "Well, like what did the bank say to you?" And he explained to me that the bank just basically said, "We have no personal knowledge if this Guatemalan passport that you're presenting is authentic, if it's legitimate, we can't authenticate it. And so we're not going to open a bank account for you." And that was the very first time I became aware of there being a massive problem that people don't have access to the most fundamental financial services that makes them horrifically vulnerable. And so you fast forward like 15 years, we eventually got the company back on a sale of assets by foreclosure. I closed out the remainder of my criminal docket. The timing was beautiful because my law school loans kicked in and I could no longer defer. And so I went back in house. I did all of this work for a series of tech startups, developing out these proprietary patent portfolios that had to deal with networking, software, hardware, the whole gamut, right? And then next thing you know, I come full circle. I'm sitting on the tech committee for the Florida bar, and they said, "Why don't you pair?" It sounds like they said, it sounds like you know a lot about networking and data management. Could you prepare a 50-minute lecture for the Florida bar on blockchain and smart contracts? Now, again, I was stupid and overestimated myself, and I said, "Sure, how hard could it be? I'd love to do that." excited
Wow.
because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
And I started preparing for the lecture. And in the process of, doing my absolute best, because I was going to be up, there's 110,000 attorneys. I think we're up at 114,000 now, Florida lawyers. And so I was going to be up in front of them in a room of hundreds of them, giving this lecture at the annual bar conference. Turns out that all of my previous experience in networking was just nominally helpful to the development of these materials. So while studying like a crazy person in preparation, it was at 2 a.m. I won't forget it. It was at 2 a.m. and it hit me. I said, oh my God, this is the solution. Blockchain is the solution for my Guatemalan client. And then it hit me. Suddenly I understood.
Wow. So wait a minute. So what year was this?
2017, I want to say.
Okay.
I want to say 2017, 2018. I mean, I could go look it up, but right around then.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. And this is so funny because I had the same epiphany when I found blockchain, or Bitcoin, I should say, and it was at 1 o'clock in the morning. So that's funny that you had that epiphany early in the morning. So that's interesting. So you kind of went down the rabbit hole and was forced to learn about blockchain for this networking event, the speaking engagement you were attending. And so once you found out about it, you figured out that the solution was great for your client. You took it back to him?
No, because it had been 15 years prior, right? And
gotcha.
So I have no idea where my client is or whatever happened, because that's when I was a public defender. But I'm fluent in Spanish, and historically I've been very involved in the Hispanic community and whatnot, and I'm very much aware that financial exclusion is still a serious problem that impacts the lives of millions in the United States and billions around the world. And so, kind of after this whole lecture event, that I gave the lecture, and it went really well, and there was like a whole line of lawyers, waiting to speak with me afterwards, which was, kind of fun. And then I got a lot of recommendations and introductions to companies, startups and emerging technology companies that were in the space that were looking for counsel. I started talking to them, and in particular, I spoke with a Bitcoin ATM company because I said, look, I really just want to buy one of your Bitcoin ATMs, put it right out there in the tomato fields where these individuals are still working today. And I had this big idea that they were just gonna, put their money into the Bitcoin ATM, convert it to Bitcoin, and send it to their wife's digital wallet in Guatemala, and problem solved. But then the company's CTO said to me, well, that's not gonna work. And I said, well, why not? Why is it not gonna work? And he says, because of KYC AML. And I said, what's that? And the answer to that question is what has propelled the last, I'm looking, it was like 5 years of my practice in totality, the pursuit of a solution to this problem. And in the process of pursuing a real world application solution to this problem, I have discovered that our regulators and the folks that are trying to sell us this solution are lying to us. Because on the flip side, what they are doing is, as the solution is being innovated by these really brilliant engineers and individuals that are sort of pioneering this technology in this space generally, the regulators, the global regulators, are moving even faster to implement greater constraints upon the individual's access to the on-ramps and the exit ramps of blockchain and digital currencies, to block people from engaging in transactions without first making total disclosure about themselves and the transactions, which then serves as the hook that at least the US government can utilize for these enforcement actions that accompany
Yeah.
these forfeiture procedures that you were talking about, and
Yeah.
then also they're arresting everyone and throwing them all in jail.
Yeah.
This is what's
It's
happening.
it's the craziest, most disturbing thing I've seen in my 37 years on this planet. It really is sounding very dystopian. It sounds like it's 1984.
Oh, it's worse.
I mean, what the hell? So here's my thing. There's 2 points I wanted to touch on that I heard you mention that really, and I was going to talk about this on a live stream myself. You said that this technology really helps the Guatemalans and just Latin America and Hispanics because they lack that access to the banking system, right?
Yeah,
And
payment rails.
so in the black community, it's interesting because I think, we have the highest concentration of individuals using cryptocurrencies if you look at it demographically, but it's for the wrong reason. It's for get rich reasons. So they're buying Bitcoin and cryptos because they look at it currently in the inner cities, in the black community. They look at cryptos as a way to get wealthy or rich. And I want them to look at it from the perspective of, in the case with your client, it's a tool for you to circumvent the banking system, to be your own bank. Those are the more powerful aspects of this technology than speculating on the currencies. Could you touch on that a little bit? Do you
Yeah.
feel the same way, or how do you feel about the current nature and current environment with newbies in crypto?
I mean, let's talk about both of those topics that you brought up, right? So when we think about can crypto get me rich quick? Well, first of all, I guess, what's your idea of rich?
Mm-hmm.
And there are some really super incredible, legitimate cryptocurrency related or cryptocurrency adjacent projects that even I have invested in, and that I've done a lot of analysis, my due diligence, and to verify that the project is real. And so you have just as good as an opportunity of getting a really great rate of return with this project as you would with, say, any non-related or non-crypto related sort of emerging tech startup kind of company. So there are real world possibilities there. What concerns me, though, is that nobody is really talking about how to do that. How do you do project analysis to determine whether, this project has, something significant to back it up, if it's
Mm-hmm.
for reals, or if it's just another scam? No, I don't
Right.
really hear people talking a lot about the how to, so we can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other subject matter that you brought up, right, is the use of crypto as an alternative banking system is that's a very viable use case. And we're seeing that play out in real time in
Yeah.
the UK and Europe and some other places as well, right? But
Right.
I just happen to be a little more familiar with what's going on in the UK and Europe
So
precisely
maybe,
because I
Anessa,
studied
go
it.
look at. So I've been in the space since 13,
Okay.
and in
You're like
14.
right at the beginning. Dude, how'd you do that? How did you like
So
what is
I have
happening
a
in your
okay.
life
Yeah, yeah.
that that
So
happened?
I have a computer science background.
Okay.
Okay, but I also traded forex and commodities.
Oh yeah, I wanted to
So
talk to you about that.
the concept, it married the two. I immediately, literally, I told you, I was reading Zero Hedge, 1 o'clock in the morning, came across the article and said, no, I have to get. I got my clothes on. I figured out how I could purchase it, and that was it. This was before Coinbase and all that, right?
Yeah.
So I say all that to say there is another example. If you look at, I remember back in the day, maybe it was in 2014. There was like the whole it was another debt crisis situation in the EU, and you had the Greek bonds and stuff. That whole
Oh
situation
yeah.
blowing up. So there
Yep.
was an island. What's the island?
Cyprus.
Cyprus. I don't. You probably looked into that case, right?
Oh
That
well,
use
yeah.
case.
The government just reached into people's bank accounts and then took the
Right.
money back
So
out.
Russians, billionaire oligarchs were siphoning their money through Cyprus, right? That was like the place. So what they did though, when Cyprus started going under, people started using Bitcoin. It was a very small, but we saw Bitcoin double in that span after the Cyprus crisis. So that was like one. It might have been the earliest example that I know of countries or citizens of countries that are in financial distress using Bitcoin. It was in 2015, 2014, mid to late 2014. Yeah. But it's just funny though, because I think the former thing that I spoke on about like cryptos being speculative and people using it for that, just solely that, just trying to get rich, right? The governments and agencies are going at it from that angle. They're saying, oh, we're going to regulate this because we want to protect people from these scams. They're going to lose all their money, blah, blah, blah. So that's the angle of attack I see them using as a reason why they need to regulate it.
I have a lot of things to say about that. You can imagine. The first and most important comment that I always make about this is I want to assure people that the US federal government has regulated the life out of crypto. It is so incredibly regulated that I have given multiple lectures on the US regulatory framework applicable to digital assets. So if it wasn't regulated, they wouldn't be successfully filing all of these enforcement actions, and they wouldn't be putting people in prison if it weren't regulated. It's regulated to death. It's just regulated badly. Right. So that's the first thing. The second comment that I make often, right, like these are questions that often come from the audience. And specifically because of my background as a former public defender, I, really feel compelled to remind people that we have here in the US, we have the most robust and complex regulatory system the planet has ever known, and it has done absolutely nothing to limit crime. And that is because by default, criminals don't give a flying flat rat about your regulations.
Right.
The purpose of regulations then is to provide game rules for everybody else to play by the same set of rules so that you've got some sort of element of certainty, when you're operating a business. And then also it provides a framework for rule enforcement. And so what we have here is an unbalance that if they want to eliminate all crime, then all of us will have to be in prison. That is the only way that you can eliminate all crime, is to imprison the entire population. That being said, then we have to make a decision as a society as to what activities that we want to regulate, which regulations are more purposeful to the health and welfare of society overall. And I am starting to change my mind, and I'm starting to think that decentralized finance with a decentralized private digital identity is the only way to successfully do this. However, that would require the total elimination of the centralized banking system and all of the know your customer, I know who you are, what you're doing, how you're transacting, where you're transacting. That would blow up the global system, and they're not going to do it. They're just not.
No, they're not. So it has to be done by force.
It has to be done by user migration.
User migration, right? But but ultimately force, in my opinion, because they will get to the point where they will deem user migration to a system like that as illegal.
Tornado cash.
Exactly.
Right, but this is crazy. The tornado cash situation. Right? Which platform was it where they just docked 600,000 users? Was it Celsius?
Celsius. We're going to talk about that today.
Celsius case.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that today.
That's the perfect use case. That's the perfect use case for Tornado Cash, because you've got 600,000 users. Their entire up-chain, down-chain, and cross-chain transaction history is now can be reverse engineered based upon the information that was released, publicly released, and in violation of a number of federal and international treaties, by the way. And so consequently, that's the perfect use case as to exactly why it is that we need software like Tornado Cash to be commercially available, and why it is that we should not be having KYC in our financial system. It does absolutely nothing for
No,
crime
no,
to
it
have
doesn't.
this.
No, it
All it
doesn't.
does is it helps the government and the powers that be reach into your account and forfeit whatever they feel like.
I feel like the attack by OFAC on Tornado Cash was one of the worst days in modern technology, privacy, non-private, just period. Like, it was so horrible to see them actually make a piece of code pretty much like on a sanctions list. It's just the craziest thing. You can't get any further than that. An inanimate object essentially is like a non-human thing is on a sanctions list. I
You
don't
know,
understand it.
I had somebody reach out to me on LinkedIn and comment on one of my posts because, I made a post about like the whole Tornado Cash and Celsius situation. And somebody reached out and they said in my feed that, in a comment underneath the post, that they they actually picked up one of the lead developers and imprisoned him.
Yes, they
And
did.
I said I want to know more about that. And I don't know if they commented over the weekend. I haven't checked, but I don't know who it is.
Yeah,
I don't
they
know where
did.
they're imprisoned.
Switzerland, not here in the States. I want to
Wait,
say
I'm
it's
gonna write it
Switzerland or
down.
somewhere like that. But they picked him up, and he's, I think, still held without bond or anything like that. I think they're sending him back to the U.S. or
How can
have.
I find out more about it? Do you have like a link that
Yeah,
you
I'll
can
send a
shoot
link
me?
to you for sure. I covered that on my channel as well, and just discussed that with the audience. It's sad. It's almost like a Ross Ulbricht situation with that guy. He's just gonna be in purgatory forever, and it's just so scary. I don't, and so that's what I mean by, like, why wouldn't they go to the point of just migrating to DeFi is illegal? Do you see that not being a possibility?
Well, I know that their intention, of course, is to implement a central bank digital currency. And they're banking on the population not understanding the difference between today's digital money versus cryptocurrency versus a central bank digital currency. They're banking on that, and they're trying to push this within the next 2 years, that we would migrate to a CBDC system, which of course would eliminate all cash, and every single one of our transactions would not only be viewable, but the money, of course, as you know, would be programmable. And this means that if they want us to be vegan, then the money would not be accessible for
Yeah, they
purchases
can
and
geo-fence the
otherwise.
currency. You couldn't use it outside of a certain radius. They can do
That's
all
right.
types of creative things. Yes, absolutely.
That's
My
right.
question to you about that, though, I'm actually one that doesn't believe that the U.S. will implement a CBDC, because you mentioned this earlier, that I don't know what you were referring to, but you said that it would pretty much destroy the banking system, the current banking system. I
Yeah.
feel like a CBDC would destroy the current United States Wall Street banking system cartel they have, because there would be no need for a bank in that sense. Everything would be issued directly from the Treasury at that point. Am
Well,
I correct or no?
yeah, it would be. And we have to keep in mind too that in the last, I'm looking, it's like, what year is it again? That's what I'm looking. I'm
Yeah,
getting old. Oh,
COVID made it. Yeah, I know.
to answer your question, we have to keep in mind that in the last 15 years or so, since we started doing, even greater bailouts more frequently, that we are actually already in arguably a quasi socialist system where the overwhelming majority of our greater institutions have been funded in such large part by Congress, which takes the money from us in the form of taxation, right? That's what inflation is. It's a hidden tax to the people, that they've been bailed out so repeatedly that because of the terms and conditions of these bailouts, while these companies are private, they're not actually private. They're not. And so with the implementation of a central bank digital currency, what you're going to see is the remaining few larger federal financial institutions will be those that help to facilitate an expanded Federal Reserve system.
Okay, I can see that. And it'll just will be done with the regional banks. They'll just be done.
Yeah, they'll have to get on board or otherwise. And of course, that's why they're pushing ESG so hard, because ESG is the Western version of China's social credit system.
Right.
And this isn't even conjecture. It's not conspiracy theory. It's not speculation. All you have to do is just read the papers that are put out by the World Economic Forum and signed by the U.S. representatives to those particular committees of the World Economic Forum and the individual, United Nations organizations, the Bank of International Settlements, the Financial Action Task Force, the International Organization for Securities Commissioners, and so on and so forth, right?
Land of the free.
Right. And a lot of people don't even know that these organizations exist, or that the U.S. is so influential, and that the U.S. is actually one of the grand leaders of this charge. That it's not conspiracy. I'm just
conspiracy. It's conspiracy fact.
It's written out for everyone to see. It's been published. It's readily available. It's been in the recent Biden executive orders coming out of his administration. I recently gave a lecture and I explained that there has been so many studies done on how to do a central bank digital currency that you could throw an NFT rock on the internet and hit one, including one of our own Federal Reserve banks. I think it was Philadelphia, but it was a couple years when I read their report. But it's been done to death. This is happening.
Okay, so I can see your angle there, but it would definitely eliminate a lot of jobs in the banking industry.
Well, yeah, and that's happening too, right? With algorithms and robo trading and whatnot.
Right. Interesting. So give us your prediction on when you see the U.S. implementing the CBDC. Like, we have FedNow. The FedNow system will be rolling out this coming year, 2023.
That's right.
Is it like a layer on top of FedNow, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it would be a layer that would have to operate on top of FedNow. And the only thing that's holding it back and being as successful that they want it to be is the challenges with multi-factor biometric identity, right? So when you think about authenticating your identity with biometrics, Apple has a really, really good technology that's entirely proprietary, and they've been, notoriously reluctant to cooperate with government endeavors. More open, available biometric authentication technologies that were commonly integrated into Android devices, like Samsung, for example, those only function about 10% of the time.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there are challenges with this multi-factor biometric authentication that you could assign at birth and that would carry you all the way to the grave. And when you look at the UN reports from the UNID 2020 project, which you may be familiar with, the idea is to execute a digital identity that is private, personal, portable, and permanent. Right? So it's going to be personal because it's personal to you, that's authenticated by multi-factor biometrics, right? It's going to be permanent because it's issued at birth and goes with you to the grave. Portable because it should be able to authenticate you anywhere on the earth at any time for any transaction. And it's supposed to be private, meaning that you control it. And that is precisely the factor that they're going to manipulate in the form of a central bank digital currency. And that's what causes me the most concern. And the only thing that's really holding back the rollout is the challenges with biometric authentication that follows you for your life. Because I've learned this. Like, an infant doesn't develop fingerprints and whatnot and other forms of biometric authentication that is accessible until a certain age. And there are other biometrics that change as a person ages, and so on and so forth. And so that has been the delay that I'm grateful for, because once we switch to the new system, there are no backsies.
Yeah.
And so we've got to migrate into DeFi as quickly as we can. But in the process, the challenge is that we're hitting these on-ramp, off-ramp roadblocks where they're forcing everybody into these KYC shoots.
Which pretty much defeat. So again, I'm an OG
Defeats the
in
purpose.
crypto. Yeah, the whole ethos back then was like it was a more libertarian type of individual. Okay, they were familiar with what was wrong with the current banking system, XYZ. They wanted some privacy, hence crypto. It's cryptography, literally. That's what it is. It just I mean, I've been screaming this from the hilltops since 2017 when I began to see Wall Street infiltrate our industry. And a lot of people in the industry were so adamant in wanting regulation because they wanted to pump their bags. It was more of a selfish reason why they wanted regulation, and now it's going to backfire on us. It's going to bite us in our ass, because literally you add regulation, KYC, as you stated, on and off ramp, KYC, regulation, AML, you add that as a layer on top of blockchain. It's the worst nightmare that a human could ever experience.
Oh, you're absolutely right. So it completely defeats the purpose. And this is exactly how I ended up like tripping and falling down the blockchain rabbit hole, is because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And then I just became deeply impassioned by these manifest unjustness of the situation, because as I continue to become educated and my clients in the space, right, I start working, I work with a lot of clients now, like the practice is accidentally grown by leaps and bounds. And it's because my clients sort of lead me through the problems in conversations with them, and then working with them and scratching my head and being like, what are you talking about? Like, what's going on? And, and working with law enforcement a lot, right, with the FBI. And my clients get subpoenas all the time for information because they have to provide it as part of the regulatory framework. And I'm just like, oh my God, like it's worse now for my Guatemalan client than it was 15 years ago. He has
Right.
a less likely chance of being able to have meaningful participation in, finance and in the economy. And I really think that this is a violation, not of a human right, but of a natural right. That it is a natural law that I should be able to, I don't know, exchange my necklace with you for your hat if we
Right.
want to, without the
Right.
government getting involved. And this is
Right.
precisely where your expertise in commodities is key to exactly what is happening right now.
Yeah.
And this is with recent statements by Gary Gensler, who's the SEC chair, and also, right, recent SEC enforcement actions, not the least
Yes.
of which is that filed against Wahi for the Coinbase insider trading case. And if you look at that SEC enforcement action, which drives me absolutely batty, is it identifies like these 9 different cryptocurrencies that, he is allegedly, insider trading, right, and violated insider trading laws.
And then a few of them are labeled securities.
They're labeling them all securities. And when you see why,
There's no reason why. They said,
well, if you look at it, why, it's interesting because they're identifying properties of commodities. And this is very disturbing because, the test for whether or not something is security is an investment of value into a common enterprise with the
Right.
expectation of profits derived from the efforts of others. And what the SEC is saying is that any gain in value,
Yep.
any gain at all,
Yeah.
is substitutes for the expectation of profits. And I say, well, that's ridiculous, because
That's
now all of a
everything.
sudden Pokemon cards are securities, Beanie Babies are securities, right? A football signed from Tom Brady after the first Super Bowl and not the 5th Super Bowl, right? Now that's a security. That's crazy. We can't be having this.
Yeah. Are you following the SEC versus library case at all?
Which one?
The SEC versus library.
No. How do I not know this?
You gotta go look at that. Deep dive into that case, because it is more, to me, telling of the SEC's intentions. They literally on record said, alluding basically to what you were talking about, like if it gains in value. They even went so far as to say, even if the company themselves did not issue the token, if its community uses the token, they could be liable, the company liable for it as being a security. It is so crazy. I don't understand how this stuff is going.
It's SEC versus what?
LBRY. And our community has used this for a long time. It's a decentralized YouTube, essentially. Okay, you're able to upload your videos to IPFS. They have a points coin system, and you earn library, or used to earn library tokens for uploading your content. Look at that case, and I'm going to have you back on. We have so much to talk about. I really have enjoyed our conversation. We definitely need to have you come back on. But the library case will open your eyes even further to what is going on. And I think it really is more important than even the SEC versus Ripple case, which we probably won't see any resolution until next year sometime. But the library
they're
case,
gonna drag that out until Kingdom
Right.
Come. Well, I've got your library case up. Have you seen the SEC versus Dragon Chain?
No.
That one's got me all twisted and nuts. I'm pretty
Wow.
upset about that one.
And then I have a guy that I've known for years. I don't know if you've ever heard of Reggie Middleton. He's been on my channel many
I'm
times.
gonna write it down.
Yes, please. So Reggie Middleton was sued by the SEC back in 2017, and this is for an ICO he did, but the ICO was done before they even gave any framework for whether or not an ICO. So they retroactively sued him, barred him from interacting with cryptocurrencies, took all of his money, literally stripped him for all his net worth, about $10 million. Okay, had to start over from scratch. The ironic part is Reggie Middleton filed a patent on what we know as DeFi today back in 2014, 15. So now he's suing Coinbase. He can, it's the craziest, and that's the craziest story ever. You have to go look. He is suing Coinbase for $300 million for patent infringement. He's possibly going to try to go back and sue the SEC for using his. It's just crazy because he basically covers everything on Ethereum.
We could talk about, right? Like,
yeah,
we could talk
crazy.
About so much because, you know, I'm an expert witness in a couple of arbitration matters against Coinbase, and it's really interesting, right? Because what it does is it forces me to pause what I'm doing and go kind of see the representations and warranties that Coinbase was making to the public at the time. And I'm out there on the SEC and I'm looking up all of their registration information and everything. And it's like,
it's a shit show.
Yeah, everything. And I don't know, right? Like it just kind of circles it back right up to what you were saying, is that, which I didn't know, that, you know, the Black American community is hopeful that if they can just get involved in the right coin and write it up, right, that this will be the solution.
Let me give you the stat, because I actually still have the article up, because I never went and did a deep dive on live stream about this article. The stats are pretty interesting. So essentially here, I'll pull up on the screen. According to a recent survey by NORC at the University of Chicago, nearly 44% of Americans who own and are trading cryptocurrency are people of color. A recent Federal Reserve report also noted that a small but growing number of unbanked individuals were trying their hand at crypto. So that was the whole thing I was saying. Like, in the Black community, we're trying to use it for, in my opinion, I didn't get in crypto to make money. I got into it because of the technology that I saw that could free us or give us an alternate route, an escape route from the system, the banking system.
That's right.
The veil didn't lift from my eyes until 2008. I didn't really know anything about the monetary system, how it worked, how debt is money, and just all that stuff. I went down that rabbit hole in 08 or after 08. When I was deeply affected by the financial crisis and everything. But yeah, that crypto to me was, oh man, this is an alternative technology that we can use, blah blah blah, right? It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna get rich or whatever. But it's interesting to see these stats. There was another one from Ariel Schwab, Black Investor Survey, found that 25% of Black Americans surveyed own cryptocurrencies. That number jumps to 38% for investors under 40.
Wow.
Black survey respondents were also less trusting of the stock market and financial institutions.
Well, they should be.
Perceive the stock market as more risky and less fair.
Don't blame them. I'm with them.
I don't think it's less risky, but that's the thing, though. The less risky part, I don't agree with.
Well,
I think it is more
risky. It's gotten more risky. I mean, the GameStop scandal. I got to tell you, man, when I saw that happening in real time, that was it for me. That was it. I was done. I was like,
stock market has gotten out of control. I used to trade stock markets early.
Everything is a lie. Everything is unfair. I mean, they're letting Congress, conduct all of this insider trading because they exempted themselves from the insider trading regulations. Yeah, I know, right? And so the whole system is unfair. And the people who bear the brunt of the unfairness are the people who can least afford it. And I used to be a big fan of the SEC. Back before my corporate law and securities mentor, she said something crazy to me. And it was one of those like, oh, duh, aha moments that was just so simply profound. And she said to me, the audacity and the hypocrisy of the SEC to be protecting unaccredited investors when they have no problem with them heading right down to the casino and blowing their entire life savings. So you can blow the government will let you go broke playing red or black. But
that's the same analogy I use. That's literally the same analogy I use.
Oh, do you? Okay. Right? I mean, but they don't. God forbid that you invest in a startup. God forbid that you even donate a little money to, your cousin's restaurant that they're starting up. And a lot of people don't know this, but even if your mom were to invest in your company, or even if you were to sell only one share of stock in your little startup, that is a regulated activity. There is no friends and family exemption for securities registration, and people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
You probably did, but it's just tucked away.
That's crazy. Interesting. Very good conversation. Well, listen, I have to have you back on because I still wanted to talk to you about DAOs, because Reggie Middleton has done a full, extensive deep dive on DAOs and how he feels that DAOs actually may not be a great thing for individuals, members of the DAO, because they are legally exposed to any legal actions against the DAO. So I want to get your input on
what they were doing in California, that there's a lawsuit charging the voting members of a DAO as running a general partnership.
Wow.
So you're not safe there either.
Yep. So I'm going to have Anessa back on, guys. Please like and share this video. If you guys want to see her back on, comment in the section below. She's really dropped a lot of jewels on us today, and I know you guys are enjoying this video, so please like, share, and subscribe. And where can we find you, Anessa? And if people want to get in touch with you for any rhyme or reason, I see I have your Twitter up here, but what's the best way?
The best place to find me really is on LinkedIn. That's where I do most of my social media activity, and I check in there a few times a week.
Okay, great. So yeah, guys, go over to LinkedIn. I'll have a link to that in the section below. You guys go check that out, and if you have any questions, hit her up and maybe she will respond. Maybe not. She's busy, I'm sure. No, she's busy nowadays for sure. But again, Anessa, I appreciate you coming on. Any last words?
I look forward to our next conversation.
Yes, man, we got a lot to talk about. I might even try to get Reggie Middleton on. He is he's a story, man. He is definitely a story. All right, it's your boy Crypto Blood, and that's another Kick in the Session. I'm out of here. Holla!